Modern society operates on a constant demand for reaction. We are conditioned to believe that whoever speaks the fastest, the loudest, and the most often holds the power in the room. This creates a paradox where volume and rapid reactivity are equated with dominance. When an individual stays quiet during a conflict, observers often misinterpret that silence as submission or a lack of conviction. Digital environments amplify this pressure. Social media platforms are architected to reward immediate responses, outrage, and the performative defense of every minor slight. Intentional silence represents an active, calculated display of emotional regulation and ego mastery. It is a tool utilized by those who recognize that not every stimulus requires an immediate behavioral output. The internal mechanics of silence determine its value. One person might remain quiet out of fear, an act of self-abandonment. Another chooses silence through deliberate control, signaling personal sovereignty and a refusal to be provoked. Psychological strength is rooted in the stimulus-response gap. When provoked, the impulsive mind reacts instantly, allowing the external event to dictate behavior. A disciplined mind creates distance, pausing to assess the situation before acting. This flowchart illustrates psychologist James Gross's model of expressive suppression. A stimulus triggers a strong emotion, but the outward behavioral response is blocked by a barrier. The individual forces themselves to hide their reaction, causing internal pressure to build. Cognitive reappraisal offers a more sustainable path. In this model, the mind intercepts the stimulus before the emotional response takes hold. By reevaluating the provocation, the individual neutralizes the emotion at its source, removing the need for a reactive behavioral output. Suppression is a fragile strategy that demands immense cognitive effort, often leading to emotional exhaustion. Reappraisal conserves that energy by changing how the event is perceived before it can trigger a stress response. Psychological strength involves the ability to neutralize a provocation and decide whether acting on it serves a practical interest, rather than simply obeying an initial impulse. Many people fall into the trap of over-explaining. When challenged, they feel a compulsion to ensure everyone understands their intentions and approves of their decisions. Attempting to control how others perceive you carries a high cognitive cost. As this diagram shows, sending continuous, rapid explanations to unreceptive critics rapidly drains your mental bandwidth, leaving you with little energy for meaningful work. Provocations designed to incite drama function as invitations to perform for an audience. Responding to these bad faith actors prioritizes theatricality over clarity. Resilient individuals accept that they will occasionally be misunderstood. They refuse to turn every interaction into a trial where they must prove the validity of their identity. This discipline is a core tenet of Stoic philosophy. Emperor Marcus Aurelius used his private journals to remind himself to ignore insults from lesser minds, recognizing that reacting to every offense was beneath the dignity of someone who governed their own mind. He operated on the principle of the dichotomy of control, the understanding that we cannot control what others say, only how we respond. This visual models that dichotomy. A rigid boundary separates external variables, like chaotic opinions and insults, from internal variables, such as your focus and your choice of reaction. Friedrich Nietzsche also explored the power of restraint. He believed that quiet confidence forces the world to listen in ways that excessive words never can, creating a presence that noise cannot replicate. Reacting immediately to every external provocation effectively surrenders your autonomy to the provocateur. You allow their behavior to dictate your emotional state. Choosing silence signals that you operate on internal standards. It preserves your sovereignty by demonstrating that you are unaffected by external noise. We can map these behaviors through specific psychological cycles. Loop 1 shows an insecure framework that requires constant external input. Here, an action triggers a search for external validation, which is then used to construct a temporary sense of self-worth. Loop 2 illustrates a secure framework. The self-worth node is established and locked at the center. Actions flow outward from this stable identity, and no external validation is required to maintain its structural integrity. The loudest individuals are often the most fragile because their sense of self is not stable. It is a value that is constantly renegotiated in every argument and every slight they encounter. Secure individuals do not need a witness to their outrage or a victory in a trivial argument to confirm their value. Their validation is generated internally. In professional and strategic environments, silence shifts from a psychological shield to a tactical tool. In business and negotiation, information is a form of leverage. This diagram demonstrates the concept of tactical ambiguity. In a high-stakes exchange, one party, represented by Node A, pulses with continuous speech, while Node B remains static and listens. The discomfort of silence often causes the weaker party to overcommunicate. As Node A attempts to fill the void, they leak unspoken motives, tactical errors, and anxieties, all of which Node B quietly absorbs to gain a strategic advantage. Silence provides an observational shield. While others are busy preparing their next rebuttal, the quiet individual is free to deeply analyze hidden dynamics and body language that noisy participants miss entirely. In these environments, information and emotion function as finite currencies. Restraining your output preserves your leverage, allowing the facts of the situation to dictate the outcome. These dynamics play a critical role in personal relationships. The compulsion to secure the final word in a disagreement typically escalates tension rather than resolving the core issue. Relational maturity is marked by the ability to hold discomfort. It is the capacity to sit with unresolved tension without immediately discharging it onto a partner through a petty argument. Choosing to exit a cyclical, unproductive argument functions as a boundary-setting exercise. It is a recognition that the interaction has stopped producing value and that your energy is better invested elsewhere. The ability to tolerate temporary discomfort without trying to eliminate it via reaction is a primary marker of psychological stability and maturity. Cognitive regulation, Stoic philosophy, and strategy connect through a single, cohesive framework. Each emphasizes deliberate restraint. The central mechanic is choice, the conscious decision to create space between what happens and what you do next. This discipline must be applied with precision. Refusing to speak when you are accountable or when someone is hurt is avoidance, not strength. Healthy silence creates room for reflection, while silence used to evade responsibility creates emotional pressure. Dr. Miles Monroe emphasized that when you are aligned with your purpose, you stop chasing validation and start focusing on results. Execution and consistency speak a language that opinions cannot override. Real strength is evidenced by the discipline to know exactly when a situation requires a forceful, articulate voice, and when silence provides a more effective response. The loudest reaction rarely wins the long game. Ultimately, protecting your attention and choosing how to respond to pressure remains a foundational declaration of personal power.